So I got a new reloading project here to start working on. I really like reloading as a hobby. It's just a full hobby. Besides being able to allow you to shoot more for in theory less, it's just fun. I load for pretty much everything I shoot. So I've been wanting a big bore AR upper for a long time. I almost got a 458 SOCOM way back. Then the 50 Beowulf came out. I thought about getting one of those for a long time. 450 Bushmaster came out in like 2007. I don't really need one. I don't hunt that much. It would punching holes in paper and hitting steel plates at 100 yards. Kind of overkill for that, but I really like just reloading and developing loads, so it's going to be fun for that. So 450 Bushmaster, it uses some of the stuff I've already got, H110 from my aforementioned 44 Magnum. This thing uses like 40-ish grains of this stuff. I mean, if you use that, you know how much of a fireball maker it is, so it should be fun. Small rifle primers are kind of hard to get a hold of right now. Not really sure why, but they are. So I'm kind of dipping into my private stock of some Arsenal primers because it uses small rifle primers. The bullet I'm going to start with is the Hornady FTX 452. It's 250 grain. The reason I'm going with this bullet is because the Hornady Black cartridge uses it, and that seems to be about the most accurate across the board. And then here's a 9mm bullet next to it. In fact, an entire 9mm cartridge is about the same size. 250 is also kind of what it was developed around, so I always like to kind of start with the standard and kind of, you know, go lighter or heavier from there. Here's the brass for this beast. Look at that. This is Starline Brass. Here's a 9mm case for comparison. So the dies I'm going with, Lee Pacesetters. I use two brands of dies. I use RCBS or I use Lee. The Lees are a great bargain. They include a sheet that comes with some of the reloading data. Oh, even has some lubricant in there. And it's a full set. So you've got your decap or your bullet seeder, your powder through expansion die, your factory crimp die. Factory crimp dies are great. They help just make sure you got a good uniform crimp across all your loads. It's really nice. Comes with a shell holder and even a powder dipper to kind of help you get started on powder charge. Alright, so that's what I'm going to be working on. I'm going to be using my RCBS Turret Press. So the next part of the video will be me setting up the dies in that turret press, and you can see how that works. So this is my turret press. I've used this for quite a long time. I started on a RCBS single stage Special 5. It's still on the bench at press. I use the turret press for my low volume stuff, 44 Magnum, 357 Magnum, some of my rifles, 7.62 by 54R, even AK, 7.62 by 39. The Dillon gets 9mm, 38 Super, 45 ACP, 223. I could set the Bushmaster up on the Dillon. I've got an extra tool head for it. We're going to get started on the press. So you start with your press, and we're going to start with the decapper die. This is my Lee Universal decapper die. What you do, put this in here, and you need your shell holder, of course. It is a number 2 shell holder, which should be used. So you lower this in, right, till it touches, with the ram all the way down. You just, to where it just touches it. Just, you don't clamp it down, you just kind of pressure there. And then this is where you would, a lot of times I leave this down, especially on these Lees where they got that O-ring. It's going to be a little tricky to turn. And you kind of lock that guy in there, right? Pretty good. Before you run your brass up in there the first time, you need to get out your handy dandy case lube pad. New dies, you want to put just a little bit of case lube on the first few cases that you resize, just to kind of, you know, get a little bit of it in there. This is why you wear an apron. We're men, right? You know, don't use a napkin or something. Okay, and you should be able to okay. And like I said, this is factory new brass, but I do like to look it over, just make sure. And that feels good. down to the bottom. It's all the way in there, comes out, and it's sizing it correctly. So alright. So, first one's done. That's the sizing die. It's pretty easy. That's your decapping and sizing die. Now the next one is going to be a bit more. That is our expanding die. Now, the expanding die is interesting. It works two ways on the Lee set. Run this guy down in here. It doesn't necessarily have to go as far. Now this is interesting. So it's got this weird little topper, right? What that is you take your powder funnel and you can set it right in there. This one doesn't quite fit. The Lee one probably drops right in, right? You can't really see that because of the you see it up here. The Lee one probably drops right in there, so that way your funnel's in there. So if you do it, if you weigh out each charge, it makes it really easy. You can just drop it in there. It's just kind of a small opening. The other thing that's neat about this, and I'm going to have to set it up. It comes out. It's just got a little ring. It's set up so you can use the Lee perfect powder disc measure. And it just screws right in the top of that same die. The expanding of the case neck, after you've run it through your decapper, and that's the decapper and it sizes it, puts it back into spec. The expander here is going to open up your neck a bit, because right now, if you try to put a bullet on here, from there, if you try to put a bullet on here, you can, but it's right, it's very hard, it's not going to sit there. If you jiggle, it's going to. The only reason that's halfway working is because of how rounded off this base is. So you have to open up your neck a little bit. And like I said, on this particular die set with the Lee, it can also charge it when it does that. So this is kind of tricky. So that's going to be too much. I can already feel the pressure there. So we're going to back it out a little bit. And usually what you want to do is I usually back it out quite a bit to where it's not doing anything. So I ran the entire ram down and it's not touching at all. So then we'll just turn it down a little bit at a time. There's a little bit. I'm going to back it off about a half. Okay, a little bit of resistance. And you can just you're not going to be able to see it on the camera, but you can feel just a little bit of a bell on there. And I think I'm going to do just a hair more. And when I say a hair, I'm talking like a quarter of a turn on this guy. That feels about right. See, now the bullet will sit on there nice and easy. Okay, so now that is set. We now have our decapper sizer and we have our expander set up. Next is the bullet seater.